Hey, my name is Savannah, and this is a discussion of my work and its exploration of queer identity through reflecting upon and altering art history.
Just a bit of background before we continue. My name is Savannah Fleming. I also go by Sav. My pronouns are she, they, and I am a painting, drawing, printmaking major as well as an art history major. I am also the oldest of 4 children, and because of this, I am very protective of those around me and those that I care about. When I was 7, we moved from California to Utah, and we spent about 11 years there until we finally moved to Florida. During this time, I experienced a lot of rejection from the community that I lived in because my family was not a part of the Mormon faith, or any faith. This really shaped my future work and my personality. Facing so much rejection at such a young age and for such a long period of time forced me to be very reclusive, and I stayed close to my family. My family was really tight-knit because we only had each other. Our bond grew even more after the shared trauma of almost losing 2 of my younger siblings within a month of each other. When we were finally able to move out of this toxic situation, I was left in Utah to finish my junior year of high school, and during this time I began to question my sexuality as well as my identity. I was forced to figure out these things by myself and alone, isolated even from my closest friends, which were my siblings. My time there influenced my work to become more open in discussing these things that are shunned by the community that I previously lived in. It was a healing process for myself, as well as a chance to try to create a space for others to find acceptance. I pull a lot of inspiration from art history, particularly textbooks, because there is a set canon that they have that dominates academia. I find this very interesting, and uh, after a study abroad to Italy, this only kind of deepened my interest and my love for art history. And from there, I began to wonder where I fit within this realm and questioned gender and sexuality and individual identity and its presence in art history, and the parts of art history that we tend to focus on.
This is a print from shortly after my study abroad, and I began to reflect upon these aspects of art history and reform them to create narratives that I wanted to talk about. After about a year of working with art history and the historical canon, I began to find other artists that were approaching art history in a similar way that I was. This was extremely exciting for me because I had searched for these people in art history for a while, and it's nice to see other people approaching this to bring minorities back into the historical canon because they've been excluded. This brings me to themes and concepts in my work. I reflect a lot on art history, specifically the erasure of queer and BIPOC from the historical canon, and I also consider aspects of identity, body image, gender, sexuality, and defying stereotypes. The following pieces are examples of my exploration into these concepts. Within these 2 works, I really began to hone in on what I wanted to say within my work. I wanted to push against the definitions of gender and identity that is set strictly by society. I intend to make work that creates an area of acceptance for individuals and individuality. I want to bring history into a context of acceptance and re-include people that have been excluded from the canon. I want to include them into a society that continues to exclude them constantly. The initial part of my process is to sketch and brainstorm, but a large aspect of it is research. I dig up imagery that is inclusive or not, and I will digitally or physically collage them. After that, I research further into the previous context and the narrative of the work to gauge its impact on the message that I want to convey. Then I will continue to edit the collage until I'm ready to transfer the piece and begin moving into drawing, painting, or carving. This is one example of a digital collage progressed into a painting. Oftentimes there will be minor or major alterations to my original collage concept that are dependent on how developed my initial idea is. However, in larger pieces such as a relief print, I try to plan out as much as possible beforehand and even consider various compositions, slight alterations, and shifts of figures or complete replacements of them. After I established my concept, I began drawing and carving. I like the aspect of including small notes for people who tend to look closer and for them to find after viewing the piece for a while. So I included symbols of gender within the decorative frame.
Moving on to my current body of work, this series intends to address masculinity and femininity in a light that acknowledges and questions their continued presence in society and seeks to highlight and defy qualities attributed to them. After searching through numerous charts of listed characteristics of femininity and masculinity, I found that most had a very misogynistic viewpoint and changed depending on culture. So I reflected upon what masculinity and femininity represented to me, since I am forced to use them in dialogue within society. For femininity, I intended to create a visual display of strength, support, and gentle presence. For masculinity, I sought to highlight confidence and emotion. To build and break through the confines of femininity and masculinity, I collaged works from Greek, Roman, Italian, and French art history. I then further altered these collages to be more inclusive of queer identity, as well as Black, Indigenous, and people of color. These references and alterations are my way of addressing queer erasure and erasure of BIPOC from the art historical canon while battling with modern day confines on individuality. Through the use of collage and paint and carving, I create works that address the bias of art history while tackling contemporary problems of identity and acceptance. As I mentioned before, the process of collage is a significant aspect of my work because it's the process of research and discovery and problem solving as I fuse and alter works from art history to develop a new narrative. These references and alterations are my way of addressing erasure of queer, Black, Indigenous, and people of color from the art historical canon while battling with modern day confines on individuality. I hope that we as a society can continue to challenge the structures that confine individual identity and find a way to not only accept others but to truly accept ourselves. Masculinity and femininity are terms that we still use, and I hope one day we can realize our identity, our sexuality, our persons are not confined to them. But at least for now, let's expand what they mean and let's challenge them. Thank you for listening to my entire presentation. I really appreciate it. I want to take this time to say thank you to my professors, my friends, and of course my family. They've all been extremely supportive.